What's better than eating pizza? Eating pizza on a pizza tour.
Look, today is all about challenging these preconceptions. There's no best, there's your favorites. And it's the best type of tour if 5 people like the first stop, and 6 people like the second better, and 4, you know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be a good mix.
Every Sunday, I take you to 4 pizzerias. Each one, we're going to eat essentially a cheese pizza. Cheese, sauce, crust. The holy trinity of pizza. Yeah. We're not going to throw stuff on it.
Thank you.
Because you're welcome. And the reason, it's not because I don't like stuff on it, but it's because I think it's important to judge it by the basic elements, right?
Yeah.
And we're not here to necessarily judge as much as we are to observe and notate and do a little data analysis.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. So we're going to hit 4 spots, this spot, and 3 others. I change where we go all the time. So today we're going to be, from here we're going to go into Brooklyn. We're going to hit 3 spots in Brooklyn, and then we drop you off right back here. So I was just texting people, being like, oh, we might come by. You ready? And then they were like, what are you talking about? Common legend is that the pizza Margherita was named after the Queen of Italy because she loved it, because it was made with the colors of the Italian flag, the white mozzarella, the red tomato, the green basil, and all that, blah, 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 blah. As it turns out, there's like no real thick evidence to prove that happened. What? So, the pizza Margherita myth, we're gonna leave it kind of floating there, just because I know that on the pizza tour where we're just eating straight up cheese pizzas and pizza margaritas, that kind of thing's gonna come into our minds. But what I want to talk about with this pizza is that cheese, like mozzarella and tomato and basil, have been on dough since the early 19th century, before Margherita was Queen of Savoy.
Here's a Keste margarita, flavorful tomato sauce and fresh mozzarella on a soft, pillowy crust. It's a traditional pizza at its best.
First thing we gotta discuss about that pie, though, we gotta talk texture. Because you notice that those of you who picked up the slice, sometimes people pick up a slice and they judge it based on how stiff the slice is, right? That's the way you judge it, right? And then, so what's your ultimate slice? Like,
Me, I love crisp. So
you want the hold up?
Maybe the very end curl.
Yeah, like just a little bit of a,
Yeah.
Not me, no problem.
just a little.
I want that crunch every.
Okay, this is an amazing moment because we already have disagreement happening, which is good. No, the disagreement is. I want to make sure I'm very clear about this. Disagreement is why we're here, because the thing that I care about is that you understand why the pizza that they make at Keste, why Neapolitan pizza will never be crunchy.
Don't like it.
Why so soft? Let's talk about why right now.
Yeah.
So, pizza all begins with dough. Dough is the absolute foundation of the pizza. There's no ingredient, there's no component that's as essential as dough. So if you want to learn how to make pizza, don't spend the first 6 months of your process learning about cheese. Cheese you can figure out later. Dough is the big process. The dough at the first stop is made of only 4 ingredients. It's just flour, yeast, water, and salt. The flour brings all of the elements to the table that are necessary for that dough to have structure. It's mainly made out of starch and carbohydrates. Flour is just starch, which is sugar. The yeast eats sugar. The problem is that the flour doesn't have the type of sugar that the yeast eats. The flour has complex sugar, and the yeast wants simple sugar. So what you need to have to happen is you need to give the dough time to mature so that the water will hydrate the flour and allow the sugar to naturally break apart into simple sugars for the yeast. So any dough recipe that you make and you use it to make pizza 2 hours later will not allow that to happen. Keste's process is 3 to 4 days.
No way.
That's what they have to do because there's no added sugar, no added malt, nothing that helps the dough along. It's flour, yeast, water, salt. And remember these things as I tell you them,
because I have a bag of stuff to give away later. We'll do trivia questions later, so stay sharp. Okay, 2 things are going to make the dough soft: time and water. The more water in the recipe, the softer the dough. The more time you give it, the more the sugars break down, the more the yeast is able to process those sugars into gas, and the softer your dough will be because there's more gas production. So that's why that dough, the 3 to 4 days of dough, is hugely important. Anyway, here's the other thing. We saw how hot the oven was, right? I didn't even take the temperature of it today, but it's usually between 850 and 900 in the morning. That's a very high temperature. A normal New York style pizza oven is around 550 to 600. So, New York style pizza is stiffer. It's drier. It has more of a bite to it. Neapolitan pizza is much softer. That because it only bakes for about 90 to 110, 120 seconds, not enough time for that dough to totally dry out and make it stiff. If you want that dough to make a crunchier pizza, you gotta bake it for a longer period of time in a lower temperature oven.
Right around the barrel. And the pizza will bake directly on the panel if it's a round pot. If it's a Sicilian or a grandma, we have a grandma. Then it's baking in a pan. So, sitting on the steel panel, and it's going to take, how long is a regular pie? 10 minutes for a regular pie. But it's these steel panels, and the oven is almost always at 500. Right under 500 right now, between 5 and 550. But with this, you open up the door, you don't lose that much heat because you have all this space up top trapping. Now, on a normal oven, the oven is this tall, and the door is like here. You open the door, you lose all the heat. In this oven, the door is up here, another 2 feet. So it means you trap a lot of heat. You have temperature. So that's why this oven is really efficient. 4 ovens. You had 3 ovens, and now you're leaning on 4. Right. And then you're up. With this, it's very easy.
Here is the J&V Grandma Pizza with its longer bake time at 500 degrees. In the baking pan, you get a crunchy undercarriage. The taste was on point from the sauce and mozzarella, but the hard cheeses adds to that umami flavor.
Nobody wants to eat the whole slice, but everybody wants to eat steak. You know what I mean? Like, look at this. Now you got little steak slices.
In the world of flour, every country has its own way of describing different flour products. In the US, we talk about protein content as being the most important element. And what that means is, if you go out and buy flour, like every day, if you're like, oh, we ran out of flour to make whatever we use flour, you buy all-purpose flour most of the time, right? Because it's all-purpose. It's for all purposes. What happens if you're making bread? What kind of flour do you buy?
Semolina.
Bread flour. Well, semolina if you're making semolina bread, but if you're making like a loaf of sourdough bread or something, usually you buy bread flour, because bread flour is higher in protein. The more protein, the more strength. The more strength means the more gas that it can hold on to. And you want to hold on to more gas if you want the dough to puff up and get like a big beautiful bread. Now, in the US, we talk about protein. That's why on a bag of flour, like if you go to a commercial bakery or into a pizzeria, you'll find a bag of flour that looks like this. On the flour, it says right on the bottom, full strength. It's all about protein. It's about what's the strength. Now, if you go to an Italian bag of flour, they don't care about the protein. The way that they label their flour has nothing to do with protein. This is the flour that they use in a lot of Neapolitan pizzerias. And on the bottom of the bag it says wheat flour type 00. What 00 means, this has to do with how they describe flour in Italy. 00 is part of the scale that goes from 00, the next step up is 0, the next step up is 1, then 2, and then finally integrale. Integrale means the whole grain or whole wheat. Their scale refers to extraction. Here's what I mean by extraction. What if I give you 100 pounds of wheat? That means like little seeds. Wheat is just, it looks like little seeds. And then you mill that down, you crush it all down. And you have 100 pounds of flour left. That's called whole grain. You didn't sift out anything. You left the whole grain there. Now, if you start sifting stuff out, if you put it through a sifter, then you're going to get the chunkiest parts, which are the bran and the germ. Those are the darker parts. When you start sifting that out, that makes for a brighter, whiter flour. The more you sift out, the lower the number. So let's say you sift out 10%. That's tipo 2, type 2. You sift out 20%, that's tipo 1. And more and more and more until you get down to sifting like 40 to 50% out, which is type 00. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that type 00 means that it's the highest quality. It's the best. Or even worse, a lot of people will think that it means that it's the lowest protein. All it really means is that it's got a lot of stuff taken out of it. It's just pure white flour. So there's no way to equate 00, 1, 2, or anything to the American scale. It's not like replace 00 with whole wheat or with all-purpose and it works every time. It's all different. It's the way that they describe it is different from the way we describe our flour. So type 00 means it's highly refined. That's the best way to describe it. Does type 00 flour work differently from any other type of flour? So it all depends, because saying something is type 00, it's sort of like saying, you can't say like, oh, here's a magic marker. I don't know what color it is. I don't know how thick the front of it is, If I'm messing with magic markers, I want to know all the details, all right? If I'm messing with a flour, I got to know all the details. So if you were going to use 00 flour, it doesn't work directly with any recipe. You have to know what's in the guts of it. So if you tell me, when we go inside, if you tell me, oh, I'm going to make hamburger buns, can I use 00? Maybe you can make hamburger buns, no reason not to. And then we can talk about what flour you use.
Comment below if you like this style. This filling was on the thinner side of what I've gotten from other places. However, the sauce was very flavorful and balanced the cheese and the crunchy dough. Tell us more about tomatoes.
I get it. Well, look, the beauty of this is it helps explain why the basil's there in the first place and why there's a little tiny bit of basil in their tomato sauce, but it's not there on purpose. It's there just for tax purposes. Tomatoes you can buy. Other parts of the country, different amounts. California is a huge producer of canned tomatoes. Going back to the whole tariff thing, this is where things get really exciting and the history makes a lot of sense. The United States was not growing and canning a lot of tomatoes until 1930. Up until that point, there was a lot of imported Southern Italian tomatoes. And at that point, as of 1926, there was what is now a very famous tomato that was basically created for the canning process. It's called the San Marzano tomato. That's a tomato that's named for the town of San Marzano in southern Italy. And the tomato is this long, skinny, pointy, very dry, not a lot of water on the inside, not a lot of seeds on the inside. It's a user-friendly tomato. It's easy to use. Now, That tomato existed for about 4 years until 1930, when the Smoot-Hawley tariff prevented us from importing a lot of Italian tomatoes, because that was the 1931.
And a lot of money for the Great Depression.
Exactly. It's exactly what it was. It was all about after the Depression hit, it was all about the U.S. trying to support U.S. farmers. So that's why we said, good for U.S. farmers, let's keep all this other stuff out. But what it did for U.S. farmers was it gave us this platform to have a domestic tomato program, among other fruits and vegetables. So the domestic tomato program really launched off in the 1930s, which is when we get a bunch of canners in California, which are still around today. A lot of them are still around today. So, when you're buying tomatoes in the grocery store, you can get tricked pretty easily, because there's all these tomatoes on the shelves, like this one,
Oh my God, Karen.
where it's sold by a company called La Bella San Marzano, which is the name of the company, it's the brand. But the actual tomatoes inside this can are not San Marzano tomatoes. The name of the company is tricky. Then you find these other ones, which I don't have it with me, but these other ones that say right on the front of it, certified, but they're not certified by any organization that has any power. What they're doing is tricking you into believing that they are certified by the European Union, which does certify tomatoes. So they'll certify a tomato if it's the proper tomato that's picked by hand, the skin is removed by steam, then you're eligible to be a San Marzano, what they call a DOP, Designated Origin Protection. Those tomatoes are pretty rare and pricey, so pizzerias might say that they use them, but they very rarely do. In fact, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if we were on our way to a pizzeria that I have heard has claimed sometimes that they use San Marzano tomatoes, my only suggestion when taking that information into your ears is to nod and smile, and then we can discuss it on the bus. I'm just saying. Because look, I've been to great pizzerias on tours, and then maybe the owners there or the pizza maker stops to talk to us for a second, and sometimes they say things that are not 100% accurate. But to me, there's no value in inaccuracy. It's doing a disservice to themselves. Because if their sauce tastes so good, but they're using a California tomato that they just don't want to brag about because it's not like the name brand, I think that that's much cooler. Over here, we're going to a place called Lindustry. L' Industry. And it's a place that the guy who currently owns it bought it, but it was owned by this French guy who was making pizza there like real thin. The guy wanted to get rid of it. This guy Massimo bought it. And when Massimo bought it, he was like, great. He's from Florence, never made a pizza in his life, decided to learn how to do it. And about 2 years into owning the pizzeria, started making some of the best pizza I think I've ever had. And I started coming here and checking it out. During the past 2 years, he expanded from one little space to now 3 spaces. So I'll show you the whole thing. Instead of adding a bunch of seating, he added a dough room. And from the outside, you'll be able to see the dough room. And it looks like we're going to bounce out of the bus right here. Follow me, I'll show you everything. Meeting of the dough society. Where's the dough? Come on up, Mike. First things first. We were talking about different types of flour on the bus. They're always switching around the types of flour that they're using. Right now they're using a type of flour from Champlain Valley, so it's upstate New York. And then they're mixing it with a type of flour from Italy. It's a stone ground flour. But those are getting mixed. And there are 2 different mixers that they have. The smaller one over here is called a diving arm mixer because it's got 2 arms that are going to go like this. And it's going to act like level 1 and 2 pepperoni slices. And as it's doing this, the bowl is turning. So as the bowl turns, the hands are doing this. They made a great investment, but they made 2 investments because they also have a mixer right next to it. Now do this.
So like save money on a pouring dough.
Not exactly save money. It's more about treating the dough properly because this is really. Oh, actually, keep doing this. The second mixer works by the bowl turns, and then the spiral mixes half of it. So this way, they're both gentle mixers.
any of you guys have like a stand mixer in the KitchenAid? Yeah. So the way that works is the bowl stays still, right? And then the hook goes around. And that creates a lot of friction, which increases the heat. And also toughens the dough. This is a lot more easy stuff. I could let you do that for hours. These are much more gentle, so there's less friction, so it doesn't raise the temperature of the dough as much. This one, the spiral mixer, the big one, that's less friction than a stationary mixer, but this one's even less friction than that. It's all about decreasing the friction so that the dough doesn't toughen up and stays nice and soft. When they stretch the dough, it's really just a gentle, it's like a gentle pat of the dough like I showed you at the first stop, but this is a 20-inch pie. This is like a full-size New York style pie, as opposed to the 12-inch in the first stop. But this room over here is separated with a glass wall, so this way it's not temperature controlled, but they prevented the heat from the oven from getting through here and rising the temperature of everything. In the back, they've got a proofing bin, so they can set the temperature really low if they want to ease the proofing rate of the dough, or they can crank it up if they need to speed up the fermentation. It's a lot, but it's all happening just in this one little space, which they could have done, like if they had more space downstairs, but there's none. They started off, you see the awning that says pizzeria? That was the whole place. Up until like a year ago, then they expanded all over. When they expanded, they added a bigger oven. This oven is an Italian oven from a company called Margherta. It's an electric oven. Remember I said before, electric. Yeah.
This is probably my favorite out of the 4 slices today, and actually I would like to come back without a group.
How many people thought second stop, J&V, crunchy, thin, dense, favorite of the day? How many thought Keste, the first stop? This is like exactly, and I'm not counting, but it's like, it's even. It looked like 4 or 5, I'm not even joking, it was like 4 or 5 or 6 people for each one. Seriously. No, that's awesome. And I love that because remember earlier I mentioned how, well, it's no fun if there's a clear everyone loves, and then every single stop there was somebody who said to me, oh, this is my favorite, and who didn't change their answer. There were people who also changed their answers, which I like, but I think that's the thing you gotta keep in mind, is that every pizzeria on the planet is somebody's favorite. And I think that's so cool, because each one will deliver something slightly different, and that's what, you're not looking for the mediocre, the one that like scratches the itch easily, you're looking for the one that you want to go out of your way for. And that's why we go down to Bensonhurst, to J&B, or we go, to North Williamsburg, to Linda Street.
Click on this playlist for some ideas to create your own pizza tour. Definitely check out Scott Pizza Tour options in the description below. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already.